In a galaxy far, far away, there exists a group of fierce and fabulous women who are on a mission to explore the depths of pop culture. They are the Galactic Gals, and they are here to take you on a journey through the cosmos of entertainment. From the latest TV shows and movies to a trip down the Milky Way of nostalgia, they will delve into the worlds of fantasy and imagination, bringing you insights and analysis that are out of this world. So buckle up, cosmonauts, and get ready to blast off with the Galactic Gals Pop Culture Podcast.
Hello. We made it, finally.
Yay!
Oh,
Sorry about that, guys.
That is a phenomenal
Sorry.
intro, I have to say. I love it.
Oh, great. That makes me so happy.
Awesome.
Was that all you guys? I mean, I assume one of you is a whiz editor and
It's not me.
Actually, the first the first little section about Galactic Gals was made by my husband, who used a lot of AI to create that.
Mhm.
And the second one was me just putting some of my favorite films and television shows together that I absolutely adore and love. So,
And the
you know,
music?
found it on YouTube for free.
Oh, amazing.
So,
amazing.
yeah. So, yeah, I'm so glad you like it. That's a compliment. Thank you. God, I'm
Yeah,
blushing.
thank
Yeah,
you.
everybody loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And,
mean, you really can't help but bebop to it, and every
Yeah,
time we
yeah, I
hear it,
love
the better
it.
it
Took me a
gets.
while.
So,
I'm very particular about music, so it took me a while
Mhm.
to find that. But welcome, Joseph Mallozzi,
Thank you.
yes,
director,
welcome.
producer,
Thank
and
you for
writer of
joining
Stargate
us.
Atlantis, Stargate SG-1, and one of my new favorite shows, Dark Matter.
Oh,
Yes.
fantastic. How far along are you?
I just watched it.
We finished it. We both finished it this week.
Oh, you finished
Yeah.
it. Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have tons of questions.
Excellent.
I just, first of all, I just want to know, like, was there any plans to go forward after it was canceled, or is there any plans maybe to do maybe an audio or
Well,
something?
yeah, I approach the series each season, like a different installment in a book series. So, the first season was about them finding out who they were, discovering they were criminals, then ending up in prison. And the second season was them essentially trying to turn over a new leaf and redeeming themselves, and then it blowing up in their faces with the destruction of the space station. The third season was really the battle against one of their own, Ryo Ishida. The fourth season would have been the alien invasion, and the fifth season would have been the android revolt. If I had gotten the opportunity to finish the series, we did try, obviously, like any producer, showrunner, once their show is canceled, you do try to get it picked up elsewhere. Sadly, there were no bites, there were no takers. I still haven't given up hope on a potential miniseries to wrap up the storyline. But right now, that has gone cold. So who knows what the future holds?
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I mean, like I said, I was me and Michelle were talking the other morning, and I was like, yeah, there's comics, and but I've heard the first 4 issues just kind of cover
the first
very
2
little.
episodes. Yeah, just the first 2 episodes.
I mean, I'm still gonna buy them, but I'm just saying.
They were actually published before the series was greenlit. So the first 2 issues cover the pilot, and they're almost exactly like the pilot. The second one, more or less, is the second episode.
Yeah,
cool.
How
did you come up with this series idea?
I've always been a big fan of villains. Okay. When I was a kid growing up, I always loved the comic book villains. I always rooted for the James Bond villains. They're always so much more stylish. And so I always wanted to tell a story from the villain's point of view. And I always found when I watch shows, the characters that always appeal to me are never the heroes, but kind of the reformed villains. And I love the idea of kind of nature versus nurture. Are you born bad? Or are you a product of your environment? And is there a possibility for change and for redemption in anyone? And so I decided to explore that and take these, at the end of the pilot, you find out that these, the crew you are following are the worst of the worst, cutthroats and criminals. And as we peel the onion on their various backstories, they have a choice of going back to who they were or moving forward, knowing what they know. And so that's really, I started developing the series back when I was working on Stargate Atlantis many, many years ago. And Stargate kept on getting picked up. And as a result, I was able to spend more time with the show and really flesh out the character backstories, the histories, what I had planned, so that when we finally did get the green light, I was absolutely ready to go. We took, we ended up breaking all 13 episodes for the first season in about 2.5 weeks, which,
wow,
is it 2.5? Yeah. And then, it all really came together. So it's been in the works for a while, or it was in the works for a while.
That's amazing. I did notice some elements of, Stargate Atlantis in there. And I love the fact that you had David Hewlett there playing sleazy character, that he played. Yeah. He played it wonderfully.
He was great. He was great. Tori as well. It was great to work with Tori again, a completely different character, but very much, large and in charge. I got a bit of Elizabeth Weir cross with Mae West vibe from her character. Yeah. And, working with Tori was a lot of fun. And of course, a lot of, Mike Dopud, who I worked with on Stargate, all 3 Stargates actually, was a lot of fun to work with. And, also my, all new cast as well.
Yeah. I loved it all. It was brilliant.
Thank you.
It was brilliant.
So was there any particular sci-fi shows or movies that influenced the creation of Dark Matter? I mean, I see some correlations there, and just being a Blake Sevens fan, I saw some of that, like with the Renault, I think it was her name, when she dressed in black and white and red, and very much like Jacqueline Pierce did in Blake Seven. And I kind of saw a correlation then. I was just wondering if you were a fan of Blake Seven.
That was a lot of that. Yeah, that wasn't a specific correlation, but certainly when I talk about my influences for Dark Matter, I would harken back to comic books like the Thunderbolts by Kurt Busiek, TV shows like The Shield, and obviously Blake Seven is a great example. But also my work on SG-1 and Atlantis, in that tonally, I think Dark Matter was very similar, sort of sci-fi with a sense of humor, which sadly we see very little of today because I keep on pointing out that executives like kind of the darker, more serious sci-fi that fans are kind of ambivalent towards, but the executives love. So that's what gets made.
Yeah, that's a sad day. I miss that, having a sense of humor in sci-fi, and especially horror, because you got to have a little of that to kind of offset the blood and the guts and the violence. So yeah, I am in love with 3. I will just say he's Han Solo of that outfit.
Can I ask you, after the first 2 episodes, did you love him or did you hate him?
No, it's kind of like I saw him like more of a anti-hero type. I didn't hate him. I just thought he's a little bit more deeper than most characters.
That's interesting you should say that, because because of the way the show's conceit and the way the show is constructed, you don't know who the characters are. You can't do flashbacks. The characters don't even know who they are. They essentially start from episode 1. And so they're, in essence, kind of ciphers or almost, touchstones or cliches. So it was very interesting. Like the feedback I got back after the first episode, people were like, "Oh, these are just characters or cliches." And 3, everybody hated 3. Omar University despised him. They were like, "Oh, he's just Jane from Firefly." And I remember telling Anthony Lamke, the actor who played him, I was like, "Oh wow!" I said, I think I may have made a mistake making you too unlikable. And he's like, "No, this is amazing," because he had read the first 9 scripts of the first season, so he knew where I was going with the character. And he's like, this is going to be amazing, because he knew that. I find audiences always, if you subvert an audience's expectations, which I always kind of sought to do in Dark Matter, either through the storylines or the characters, you end up, pleasantly surprising them and bringing them on as huge fans. So, you look at the characters who resonate most with fandom, and it's like the villains who become heroes, or, the heroes who become villains. And I remember taking a psychology class once in college where they did a study. I was told about a study where it turns out that former friends make the worst of enemies, whereas former enemies tend to make the best of friends. Just that turnaround. So that's what was so very rewarding about the 3 characters. Everybody kind of almost universally despised him at the beginning. And then as you peel the onion on the character and you find out who he really is, he became a fan favorite. Which is something kind of I set out to do, and really, a lot of it was Anthony Lemke's brilliant performance as a character of 3.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite episode to write, and why?
That one. I would have to say episode 304, All the Time in the World, which is our time loop episode, because one of the first episodes my writing partner Paul Molly and I wrote when we were on Stargate was Window of Opportunity, which was a time loop episode. And I knew I wanted to write a time loop episode for Dark Matter, but I didn't know what structure it would take. And I ended up watching easily 36 time loop episodes of every show that has ever done a time loop episode, like Xena, Supernatural, X-Files, Star Trek. And then I distilled the formula and I tried to subvert it. And so that's how that episode came along. And we tried to break it in the room, meaning in the writer's room, and we couldn't do it. And then I ended up sitting down one day and just writing it. And it was the fastest episode I ever wrote. I almost wrote the entire script in a day, but it just kind of flowed and came so naturally. And the fact that there was like humor underpinning the story really helps, because I'm actually better at the kind of the more humorous episodes, the ones that involve a bit of humor. So I think that was my favorite for just the way it all came together, the performances, the direction. It was just like a lot of fun. And the fan reaction, of course.
It was so fun. I love those. And those always tend to be, on any kind of series, the fun episodes, especially supernatural shows like that. I go for the rewatch value for those is immense for me.
Yeah.
Just a personal thing.
Yeah, you always get something new. You get something new each time you watch it. I mean, I was waiting for 3 to say wacko, like in reference to Window of Opportunity. But
right.
watching it, I'm like, oh, that's like Window of Opportunity. My husband and I picked up on that right away, and I'm like, yes. Yeah. So yeah, I love it. I love it, man. Golly.
We were very sad, me and Michelle. And then I'm going to let Michelle finish here. But yeah, we were very sad. We were like going, I'm so upset. We didn't find out what happened with Sarah. And now it's just getting really cool. Like aliens coming across, and it's like, man.
Yeah, there were actually, one of the plans that I had was to make Sarah the big bad in season 5. But again, I sadly did not get the opportunity, but it would have been awesome.
Hopefully one day we will see like an ending to it, because it deserves it. But I know Michelle's got tons of Stargate questions for you, I'm sure. Right.
Well, but for Dark Matter, the androids and that alien life form, it kind of reminded me of like the replicators. So I don't know if you used any replicator concept, for that idea.
Not really. In terms of like android, the idea of kind of an android is, as old as sci-fi, and androids are some of the most endearing of sci-fi characters, like Data, for instance. And just what Zoe Palmer did with the character was just amazing. And speaking
phenomenal.
Of fan favorites, the android was very much a fan favorite. And in terms of kind of the replicators, not so much the replicators, but certainly like the aliens that we kind of introduce in season 3 have really they're more resident of the Goa'uld from SG-1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So when you were back writing Stargate Atlantis and everything, where and how did you come up with those storylines? I mean, the idea of Atlantis, of course, that intrigues a lot of us. And, maybe one day in the future we'll find it eventually. I think it'd be brilliant,
Well, I mean, Brad Wright and Robert Cooper were the co-creators, and so in terms of inspiration for the actual concept and the characters, that's a question for them. But in terms of coming up with the stories, the writing department would get together at the end of every season, and we would essentially spin stories. Everybody would come up with a story idea. Hopefully everybody would come up with one, and we would throw them out to the room, and everyone would have ideas, and we would throw out those ideas, and we'd think, we'd try to sort of flesh out the story. We'd put them up on the whiteboard, and everyone would go off with a story or two during the hiatus and write. And we'd come back, and those stories would go into production, and then the writer's room would convene yet again, and we'd spin more stories. And really, that's the way it went. And once production starts, production is very much a machine that would eat up those scripts and story ideas. So you always had to be coming up with ideas, or writing, or spinning stories. It was just constant. Even when you were on vacation as a writer, you were always writing or coming up with ideas, especially when you went from. I mean, we were on the franchise for 12 years. Paul and I, so we joined in SG-1's 4th season and went through, to season 10. Then we did 5 seasons of Atlantis. We did the 2 seasons of Universe, and it was just, a constant. I don't want to say struggle, but certainly at times it was a struggle to come up with new ideas.
Okay, awesome. Oh, Wendology, yeah. Throw that back up there, Andy. Wendology says, hey, really enjoying the show. Fascinating to listen to Joseph speak about these things.
Oh, fascinating. Thank you.
They may have some questions, that
absolutely.
I tell people to bring their questions, and I mean, I have some about other stuff, but again, I don't want to hog it. I know Michelle is a huge Stargate fan.
So. Yeah, I learned all my Egyptology through Stargate.
Wow.
I mean, it's just because it's just a natural progression, I mean, it just made things come to life for me. It's like back when I had history in high school, I hated it. And then I fell in love with it in college because I had this professor who brought history alive. And that makes a difference,
Oh, it absolutely does. And, I'm always amazed by fans who, they watched the show when they were younger, and someone like Sam Carter or Daniel Jackson inspired them to their careers in, whatever they decided to pursue. It's always, incredibly heartening.
That's why I love seeing women in major roles like Nichelle Nichols from Star Trek, inspiring all kinds of women. Women went into science and NASA because of her. Same with Samantha Carter. Women went into, the military because of her, going on and, reaching their scientific endeavors or even becoming officers in the military. And I think that's just brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need more strong women characters like that. For sure.
And we need shows that inspire. I think that's what we're kind of lacking. I mean, there's a few, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I have a question. I have a question. So I know AI is kind of big right now, and it's kind of a hot topic. So my question is, what are your thoughts on the use of AI in writing? Do you think it will ever replace human writers?
Yeah, I honestly don't think so. Or if it does, it's such a long way off. I mean, I know people are sounding the alarm, and rightly so, in terms of how it is being used now. In terms of like, I know like a lot of literary magazines are finding it going very rough because people are submitting AI generated short stories. I think where AI falls short is humor. I think it can do an adequate job of creating a completely average idea and potentially a completely average kind of clunky script, but I don't think it can create anything really of value or anything that people will that will impress people. From a visual standpoint, I think, I mean, what it can create is amazing right now. I just don't think it has a nuance to be able to convey on the written page in the way a writer can. And I'm not saying eventually it can't, but I think it's a long way off in that respect.
I mean, there's still like, I do use it to a certain level for certain things, but I still go and I do write. I do have to fix things, and it's not perfect.
It's an assist, really, at best.
And I think for that, it's really good. But my concern, and my husband, who is into AI images and things, and those are very cool. And as an artist, as I draw and paint, my thing is that you take the human element out of it, and you take the passion out of something, and just the whole, it's not just that. It's getting out a piece of paper and feeling a pen in your hands. It's that as well. And I think that's lost when you just can click a button and then that's it. So I think the passion is lost in it, personally.
Yeah, I agree. And I think audiences can pick up on passion. And again, like I said, the nuance of humor.
Yes. Some of it is okay. Depends on the AI you use. I've come across ones that are pretty good, but you have to be very descriptive.
Yeah. I think the danger or the worry in some writers, and it's one that really should be taken seriously, is the possibility that executives, despite the fact that AI will write, pretty marginal scripts, that they will go with AI because it's cheaper, and B, because, let's face it, a lot of executives can't tell the difference between a good script and an awful script. So to them, in many instances, a script is a script.
Right. So exactly. They just want to get it out there quickly just so they can make money.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I'm getting. So question from Art Clark. Hi, Joe and host. What secret projects are you working on presently? Hints, if you can give those.
Okay. Well, I have a horror comic book coming out hopefully later this year. I've just submitted the 5th issue. I'll be receiving artwork back. We'll be having an announcement about that hopefully in the coming month. Also in the horror realm, I'm hopefully looking to lock down financing to shoot a horror movie in Bulgaria this fall. I have a kind of it's out of my wheelhouse usual, but I'm a big fan of sort of the old 70s like detective series like Columbo and Murder, She Wrote. So I wrote a kind of a humorous cozy mystery series that I've just optioned, and a producer
I know a
is going to be
person that
going
will
out.
be really into that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
not here,
So
but yeah.
we'll see how that goes, and a couple of other projects, obviously in the sci-fi realm as well.
Cool.
That I've written or have just written, and I'm going out with. But I mean, in this business, the strike has obviously complicated things and put a pause on a bunch of stuff. So, we'll have to sort of wait and see.
I'm looking forward. I can't wait to see what you come out with.
I'll keep you posted. Yes.
I'm really impressed with Dark Matter, and it was like, how have I never heard of this show? And thanks
Tell
to
your
Michelle,
friends.
I
Tell
have
your friends.
now. Yes,
Yeah.
and I have. I trust me. I tell everybody that knows me. I just go on and on about the shows I love. So,
well, to be fair,
it
aired on Sci-Fi Channel, and they never had the best record of promoting shows. So
no, they don't, and it's a sad thing because they had some good stuff there, but. Another question from Penelope Pitstop. As a successful writer, does Joseph feel he is always competing against what he has already achieved as a writer? Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, you're always as good as your last show or your last script. So often, I'll look back at the stuff I've done in the past and I'll think I'll never be able to equal that. And then when I do, I will sometimes surprise myself, and I'll still wonder, how I did it. It really is a magical process because you sit down and somehow it magically comes together. Occasionally it doesn't, which leads to self-doubt, but more often than not it does, and it's amazing. Like the pilot for that Cozy Mystery, for instance, I wrote, I had it in the back of my mind and I put it off, and then I finally sat down and wrote it. Always pitch things to my wife. And whenever she gets very excited about something, that makes me very excited about it. And then I go off and write it. And it was, it garnered instant interest, which was great. Hopefully that also results in a sale and a series order. But I guess we'll see.
Well, we're creating fans just from just talking about it. And
amazing.
Morondo, I want to watch Dark Matter now. I'm like, see?
Excellent.
So
report back.
That's how it happens.
Yes.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, I said you'll be hooked. So it's an amazing series. It really is. And it just ended too soon because there's so many ways it could have branched off. I mean, there's so many unanswered questions. So since we have this writer's strike and now, the actor's strike, and I know you live in Canada, and I guess things may be different for you, but when stuff like this happens, do you guys just keep writing and piling it away for the future, or do you kind of take a break too?
No, essentially, yes. I mean, I'm a Writers Guild of Canada member as well. I know the Writers Guild of Canada, it's a different union, but I'm just at home. I'm continually developing. I'm not going out, obviously, with any scripts. I'm not taking any meetings. This downtime would have been a great opportunity to go and do your typical dog and pony show in LA. But because of the strike, you honor obviously the strike, and so it's giving me the opportunity to just focus on new pilots and hopefully stockpile a bunch of scripts so that once the strike ends, I can finally go out with them.
Okay. How difficult is it to actually write a script? I know I have like story ideas in my head all the time, but sometimes I just don't know how to get it out on paper.
Yeah, it really depends on the idea.
Okay.
Like sometimes coming up with the idea is the toughest part. Something original that gets you excited. And really all I can say is if the idea excites you, then the rest really falls into place. Like the way I usually do it is I come up with an idea, and if it excites me, great. I'll usually talk it out to someone, usually my wife. She'll be my soundboard. And then I'll, I won't sit down to write. I'll basically just think about it and let it roll around in my head, and I will construct the story. So for instance, if it's a mystery series, what is a mystery? What is what is, look for the twists. I'm a big fan of finding like the big moments in a story. For instance, in the time loop episode, I wanted 3 to learn a foreign language. And so basically that scene came to me, and there are certain scenes that sort of come to you. You want to write towards those scenes, and you flesh them out in your head. And so you've got like little pieces of the puzzle, and then you've got to find a way to kind of string them together in some sort of structure. So you build that 5-act structure. What happens in the first act? What is that last moment at the end of the first act, that dun 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 moment that sends you off to the commercial, and then launches you into the second act. So very much it's like you have kind of the big picture, and then it begins to kind of solidify in terms of scenes and act outs, and kind of the structure builds. And then once you have the structure, you start going through the scene bit by bit in your head, and you start rolling the dialogue in your head, and then once it really begins to take shape, that's at that point I actually sit down, because I actually have stuff to write. And I'll write the first couple of pages, and then take some time off, come back to it, and rewrite the first few pages, then head into the next scene, and so on. And so it's a constant process of thinking and spinning ideas in your head, and writing and rewriting and pushing ahead, and hopefully finishing and completing a script that everyone loves.
Awesome.
And we learned, so.
we did. Yeah. You mentioned him learning that foreign language, and I won't give any spoilers, but does he really speak that language? Because it sure sounded like he does.
Yeah. Well, Anthony lives in Montreal.
Okay.
And he learned French. I mean, I grew up in Montreal, and my French is nowhere near as great as his French. And so originally I was thinking, what's a good language? And I thought, well, perfect. Actually, Anthony speaks French. And so that we worked that in. And I know the French fans actually very much appreciated that as well. I think they got a kick out of 3 learning French.
Yeah, because usually we all have to have subtitles. Yeah. I took 2 years in high school, and I could pick up little bits here and there, but that was it. So he did a fantastic job with it. So
absolutely, he did.
Love it. Oh man. I see people are definitely wanting to watch it. So yay. That's good.
Great.
Really good.
The more the merrier. We need a group so we can do dark matter streams. And
excellent.
Yeah. I mean, in the past we a bunch of us Stargate fans, we've tried to save the gate. We had the Save the Gate campaign, and I guess that kind of fizzled out a little bit, didn't it?
I didn't so much fizzle out. I'm sure the decision makers at MGM and Amazon were aware of it. They're very aware of the fan support, the fan passion, their eagerness to see a new series, but they're kind of like a deer stuck in the headlights. They really don't know how to proceed or how best to proceed. I've always argued that the best of both worlds is you bring the old fans on board by creating a series that is new for new fans and yet has echoes of the old fandom. And the best way to do that, I think, is to involve the original creators, Brad Wright and Robert Cooper. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going down that path. I think they're kind of tossing out the old creatives and bringing in some new creatives, and just which is kind of altogether bizarre to me. The fact that they're taking that path, but the fact that they don't even have kind of the professional courtesy to extend an invitation to Brad and Robert to pitch the new series is altogether baffling, and I think will blow up in their faces in spectacular fashion. But we'll see.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So we have another question from Penelope Pitstop, and I love that name, by the way. I have the Funko Pop back here. How many hours a day does Joseph write, and does he prefer writing in the morning, or does he burn the midnight oil?
Oh man, that's a tough question to answer because it really depends on my mood. I would love to say I sit down and write from 8 to 11, then take a break. But to be honest with you, I'm on the internet. I'm on Twitter a lot. I do my own blog. I try. I guess it's not so much when I write as how many pages I like to get done. If I'm actually, working on a script, I want to aim for 3 to 5 pages a day. And if I can get 3 to 5 pages a day, I'm happy. 3, I'm pleased. More than 5, then I'm thrilled, because I'm kind of banking pages. And then, of course, the end always goes faster. In terms of when I'm most inspired, I find, I guess, maybe early morning, later afternoon, or early evening. And then, as I said, I do most of my writing also when I'm not writing, meaning I'm, when when I'm in the shower, or when I'm lying in bed, I'm running the dialogue in my head, writing the scenes, and or coming up with ideas for the episode. And really, that's most of the work. Once you know what the scene is going to be, then really it's just a matter of just sitting down and writing it out. That's the easy part.
So you're drafting in your head.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of drafting on a paper.
Yeah, it's funny, because I remember when we were on Stargate, and we would come back from our 2-month hiatus, or a month and a half, and people would ask, "What'd you do on the hiatus? How'd you spend your time?" And we would always be like, "Where do you think these scripts came from?" I mean, as a writer, you are always writing. If you're working on a show, you're always trying to come up with new episode ideas. If you're not working on a show, you're coming up with, hopefully coming up with ideas for a new series, so that you can get on a show and keep working.
Yeah. That's sounds like you got a good process. I don't think I would be that organized with it.
To be honest, I am not organized. I just really, the prospect of a deadline really is a great motivator.
Right. I actually am starting another, this is unrelated, but I'm starting another true crime podcast, and I'm having to do that, all the research, and kind of put everything together. So, awesome. And I'm not that organized at all. So
controlled chaos. Yeah. I just from you mentioning you've written a horror comic. I'm not a horror fan per se, but I have watched some in my past. But I know Andy is, and some of the people in the chat love horror films. What are some of your favorite horror films?
Yes.
I've put together. I recently did a horror marathon. In fact, I'm about, I think, 235 horror movies deep into this horror marathon. I've taken a break for about a month and a half, but I may get back on it. But I found that some of my favorite horror movies tend to be the foreign horror films, because they have sort of a different approach and a different sort of cultural mindset, which is kind of alien to sort of my horror viewing experience. So very much I'm drawn to movies like, the original Ringu in Japanese. There was a Senegalese horror movie called Saloom. There was I think it was a Norwegian horror movie called Speak No Evil. There was an Argentinian horror movie called Terrified, Atarados, which was, fantastic. Off the top of my head, there's a movie called Satan's Slaves, which was Indonesian. So I tend to really respond to foreign horror, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, one of my favorite films is somewhat of a foreign film called Suspiria.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The original or the remake?
No, the original. Always the original. Yeah. I mean, the remake's okay. But...
Yeah, Italian, Dario Argento. Yeah.
Yes, I love his films.
Yeah, very stylized.
And the music and just the way, the atmosphere, and I could do a whole stream just on his films. So I've loved him.
Kelly's got a question. Have you seen Les Diaboliques, the original with Simone?
Yes.
However you say her name. Okay.
Yes, it was actually part of the my horror movie marathon. Check it out. Actually, I liked it quite a bit. I was less, I guess, enthusiastic about how it wrapped up the climax, but I thought it was kind of brilliant, very very stylish French horror film.
Okay.
Maggie Heron said she's very excited about the horror.
Thank you. So hopefully,
me too.
We'll have more information about the horror comic very soon, and then hopefully by the fall, we'll have the information in place and about the horror movie, and we'll be able to tell you all about it. And if this horror movie goes, I have 2 more horror scripts that I want to sort of put into production maybe next year. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, I'm looking forward. I will definitely be checking that out for sure. On the same line of questioning, what are your favorite shows out that are out now? Like not anything in the past, just
people ask me this whenever I go to LA and we were meeting agents. They ask, "What are you watching?" And I often hard for me to answer the question because, to be honest with you, when I'm not working on a show, I don't watch anything, because if I'm not working on a show, I feel as though if I'm not writing, I'm wasting time. So I feel guilty taking the time to watch stuff, or read to a lesser extent. But when I'm in production, I know what I have to do, and I have the free time to watch a show or read a book. So right now, to be honest with you, I'm not watching anything. I watch food-themed YouTube videos or financial YouTube videos at night, but and the occasional horror movie for the marathon. But in terms of TV now, there are a bunch of shows that I want to catch up on and watch. But and I put together like a whole list. A lot of them kind of detective or mystery series, and then a few other kind of sort of dark comedies. But there's really nothing I am watching at this moment that I'm loving. Just simply because I'm not watching anything.
That's fine. You're probably better off, to be honest with you.
Wow.
But like I said, we're always looking for something new to watch. So I didn't know if you had any recommendations.
No, do you guys have recommendations? What should I be watching?
Good Omens.
Well, right now,
Good Omens 1 and 2.
Yeah,
I mean,
Good
if
Omens
you've not seen them,
yeah.
Oh gosh, let's see.
We're
Of
watching
course,
Strange
Dark
New
Matter
Worlds right now.
Strange New Worlds is good.
Yeah. I just finished The Witcher. Meh. It was okay. Other than Henry Cavill, it was okay. But yeah, you're probably better off.
Right.
There's a few.
I'll see.
Yeah. There's just not much that. I love sci-fi, but I also like action drama too. So I'll like watching Queen Latifah in The Equalizer. Another woman in a strong female role. I love that. And I know you put a poll up on your Twitter this morning about who's the greatest American detective. And I have to throw out there my plug. I got to say Columbo. But if you would have said in the world, I'd have to go with Sherlock Holmes. But I love Sherlock.
I voted in that, and to me, it was like Jim Rockford because that's who I grew up with. So.
Yeah, he has a lot of fans.
I remember that series though, the Rockford Files.
Yeah.
We've done some decade streams, so yeah.
We didn't mention that one though because we usually stick to sci-fi. Yeah. Rockford Files was a classic. Kolchak, the Night Stalker. That's a kind of a mystery.
Yeah, more horror.
More
horror than mystery. By the way, Time Mechanic in the comment section says, I watch YouTube videos about global finance and the U.S. debt ceiling, as do I. You're watching Steve Van Meter or Eurodollar University? Let me know.
Yeah, the U.S. debt ceiling, that is a real horror for sure.
Jason Scott has a question. What's been your favorite project to write for this far?
If I had to rank them, I'd say Dark Matter would definitely be number one because it was my baby, and I, could essentially do what I wanted with that show. So I didn't really get notes from the network. They didn't pay enough to give notes, so I didn't get notes from the network. And my cast was so great, and just the overall experience was amazing. And I got to tell the story I wanted to tell. I wrote most of the episodes. I certainly rewrote everything that eventually went on screen. So I would have to say Dark Matter is really most representative of the type of story I love to do. Just very much sci-fi with a sense of humor, but at the end of the day, it's really about the characters and kind of this found family bond at the heart of the show, which I think is what all great sci-fi is about. And I've always say whether it's a crew of the Enterprise or Team SG-1 or the Guardians of the Galaxy, they're like a family nucleus.
Yes, and I think that's why things like Supernatural and Dark Matter and Star Trek, that why it's worked is because it has a family unit structure, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree.
Something that's missing. It's missing.
When you were writing Dark Matter, I know that for SG-1 and Atlantis, I think you had like a military advisor for the military side of things, especially on SG-1. Did you ever have like scientific advisors for talking about some of the hard sciences that in your shows?
Yes, on both SG-1 and Atlantis and Universe, we did. Yes. So, and in the case of SG-1, we also had the military advisors because we're dealing with the United States Air Force. And they were always great. They vetted the scripts. But in Atlantis, it was a civilian operation, so the military was not involved in that one.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw in Dark Matter the concept of a white hole, and I'd seen that previously before I even had gotten to that point in the series. Saw it pop up somewhere either on Twitter or Facebook or something. So I researched. I'm like, oh wow, it really is a real thing. So
I mean that's cool. But if you're a big sci-fi fan, these ideas will kind of come to you, and you just have to do your own research. In the case of the white hole bomb, that was an idea from Paul Mully, who was my former writing partner, and originally the idea was kind of a black hole bomb, and he was like, actually, what would be even cooler? A white hole bomb, because like you said, you don't really hear about white holes. So he did a little bit of research on that, and that we incorporated it into the episode.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I love it when you can take a show and bring real science into it, because it makes that show more real.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's another question from Jason Scott. Joseph, do you have any influence over how an actor portrays a character?
I would say insofar as what's written on the page and the dialogue, but it's very much a collaboration. For instance, you write the character, and the actor, for instance, let's say in the case of Anthony Lemke or 3, he may have an idea of how he wants to perform a scene or how to deliver a line. And sometimes it's a discussion, sometimes it's not. Sometimes he'll offer alternate readings, and you see sort of what pops, for lack of a better way of putting it, and what doesn't. And so you write to that actor's strength, and it's very much kind of almost like a symbiotic relationship, and you essentially build the character together. And I think it's the case with like any character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Was there ever any ad lib scenes in the Dark Matter in spots?
Not so much ad libs. Occasionally I mentioned Anthony Lemke because every actor had a different approach. And on the one hand, you had Jodelle Ferland, who played the part of 5, who never had notes, never had comments, always delivered the lines exactly as I imagined them in my head, which was always uncanny. And then you had Anthony, who would always kind of want to play with the scene or play with the character or play with the line, and how can I do it this way? Can I do it that way? And that was kind of a fun process as well, because sometimes I knew how I wanted the line delivered, and I would get that from him, and then occasionally he would be like, "Can I do an alternate take?" And I'd be sure. And sometimes the alternate take would surprise me, and that's the one I would put in the edit. So again, very much a collaboration.
Wow.
So Joseph, was there any characters that you found particularly challenging to write for, whether it be Dark Matter or Stargate?
The Dark Matter characters were all easy to write for because they all had an underlying sense of humor. And I always found those characters the easiest to write for. And if you can find the humor in some characters, then they become easier to write for. In terms of difficulty in writing for characters, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, to be honest with you, even though I write in science fiction, I err more on the side of fiction than science, than the hard science. Whereas, someone like former writing partner, Paul, would be more, and Brad Wright especially, they would really go more into the hard, science aspects and infuse their stories with that. So, I mean, you could really tell the stories that Brad would excel at, as opposed to the ones that I would excel at. Wind of Opportunity is a great example, or someone mentioned the one where, the different alternate versions of the SG-1 crew would show up on base. Those are kind of the funnier episodes, or the fun kind of like lunatic episodes. Those were the ones I would love to write. Whereas, Brad, very much about kind of the kind of more grounded science fiction that really the hardcore fans loved and appreciated.
Okay. Cool. I particularly like the ones that are more fun. I always
I think,
and I love sci-fi.
I think a mix is always a good thing. I think the crazy fun episodes really don't work as well unless you have like the more grounded episodes to really allow you to sort of make those characters and the situations very, very real.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely have to have both, to balance each other.
Five's swordmanship when he was,
Four.
Was he four? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he, I guess, obviously train to do that, or was he just natural with it? Because he made it very fluid. Both.
Alex Mallozzi Jr., who played Four, and Ryo Ishida, extremely athletic, extremely talented, and just an amazing student in terms of sort of learning stunts and sort of learning, weaponry and learning swordsmanship. With our stunt coordinator and director, John Stead. He took him through that, and he was a very fast learner. And, I can't say enough great things about Alex as well, and hope I get the chance to work with him. In fact, actually, I say the same for my entire Dark Matter crew, and would love the opportunity to work with them again.
I have to say, I didn't see that twist coming with Rio. I mean, Four getting all his memories back and then literally just turning bad. That was like, it's hard to get me. Usually I can see the twist coming. You actually fooled me. I did not see that coming at all.
Yes. Well, that was kind of the whole point. Like I say, I go back to the idea of there are certain sci-fi chestnuts that fans expect. And if you can find a way to subvert those expectations or surprise them, it makes for like a lot, a greater viewing experience for them and makes it a more memorable experience for them. So, when I look at back at, the certain surprises, like the twist at the end of the first season finale, where you find out, there's a mole on board, and we do kind of a locker room mystery where characters start dropping off one by one. That was a fun twist. And, the Ryo Ishida twist was a lot of fun. The bloodbath in the palace. That was actually one I was really looking forward to. Like, there's certain episodes.
It was like a Game of Thrones moment.
Yes,
it really was.
Yeah,
like the Red Wedding.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was hard to distinguish which one was the ultimate bad guy in there. Was it her, or was it his, advisor? And it's like, I kept going back and forth. I'm like, no, it's got to be, So yeah.
The stepmother was definitely the worst. I remember thinking, okay, fine, kill her, and then I was so shocked when he killed his brother, because I did not see that.
I wasn't expecting that either.
Okay, he is really bad. He's gone. There's,
yeah.
Obviously there was going to be redemption. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there wasn't.
That was the plan. I'll tell you the plan. Essentially the plan was, and I kind of set it up. One of the things I loved about Dark Matter is that I was able to set up clues, episodes, sometimes seasons in advance. Like there's the episode where we first introduced Sarah in season 1. She purportedly dies in her pod, and what you see is her in her pod, and you see Five standing over her. And she kind of cocks her head as if she's thinking of something. And then you don't find out until 2 seasons later, in season 3, off the top of season 3, that essentially what Five's idea was to upload Sarah's consciousness into the pod and then transfer it, essentially download it into the ship. And that's how we get Sarah back. So, doing stuff like that, like, setups and payoffs was always very, very rewarding for me. And then something like I did constantly on Dark Matter.
Yeah, I have to say you are. I've seen and watched a lot of sci-fi, but you are the king of cliffhangers, and I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that's important in a science fiction show to me. It's like that's why I always love Blake 7, because every episode you're like, how are they going to get out of this?
Yeah.
That's
the type of show I like. I mean, I look back on our run on Stargate, and I realized that we ended up writing a bunch of those cliffhangers, and I love them. Like, I mean, I think back to I think it was like Camelot, where the ORI come through the super gate, and the Earth Alliance gets their asses kicked, and Carter is left floating alone in space. That was a great cliffhanger. There was I think the Siege Part 2 in Atlantis was another one, where the Wraith attack Atlantis. That was another fantastic season ender. I think in Stargate Universe of season 1 ender incursion Part 2, where the Aleutian Alliance take the ship. There's always that kind of an all hope is lost moment that I love to sort of throw out there, and then find a way to restore hope in the next season.
Yeah, I mean, just in general in the episode, it's like there's obviously like, well, how are they? They're in a hard situation. It's every episode, and I know that might be a trope for some people, but for me, that piques my interest a lot, because I want to see, like, the first one was they don't know who they are, they don't remember who they are, they don't know what's going on. Already, I'm hooked because. I mean, I know that they've done that with horror, like Under the Dome and things like that, but you got to be able to, keep that going, keep that momentum going.
Yeah, keep it going in an interesting way. I mean, one of the things that a lot of high concept shows have is that high concept and then no follow through. Like, essentially, they just string their audiences along. They don't get answers, and it just becomes a frustrating experience for them. And one of the things I vowed for Dark Matter is never to do that, to, constantly be giving audiences answers to these overriding questions. And yet in so doing, also set up other mysteries to sort of, intrigue them along the way. So, in the beginning
I actually appreciate that, because one thing about, you watch a show that has a long story arc, Supernatural or one of these other shows, that's not episodic, and then they just string you along, and you're just like, I'm so tired of the story arc, and you want answers. And I appreciated when I was watching that, going, wow, he actually answers your questions. You get an answer, and it's not like you have to go on, you have to watch 6 episodes to find out, and I appreciate that about Dark Matter. Okay. So I wish more shows were like that.
Yeah.
I wish we could get him to go write for Doctor Who. That would be brilliant.
That would be improvement into the last season. But Jason Scott says, Joseph, obviously you love what you do, so I'm curious what you consider the most challenging aspect of the job.
The most challenging aspect of the job is convincing an executive to greenlight a show so that you can actually finally bring these worlds and these characters to life. I mean, for every Stargate or Dark Matter, there are hundreds of ideas, great ideas that just will never see the light of a TV screen, sadly. So that is the most challenging and the most frustrating aspect of my job.
Yeah, I saw your conversation on Twitter about that, and how I thought that was a very interesting take, that a lot of writers get blamed for what's currently on television, and I liked the point you made, is that it has to go through executives first.
Yeah.
So you might have a good story but they're gonna stop it before it even gets out, because they want to put out what they want to put out.
Yeah, ultimately they have the final say on what gets put out, and if if they were all, I don't want to say know what they were doing, but if they all had excellent taste, then, everything would be a hit. But, as it turns out, not everything is a hit. So, that is very much a challenge. And then when you get into production, sometimes you have executives who will want to put their creative imprint on a show and occasionally change it for the worst. And, I'm not, but, occasionally you have, executives who will help make a show better. But you do have sometimes executives who can scuttle a great,
Yeah.
Wow.
I think television is kind of going through that a lot. You're seeing more of that, unfortunately. And I'm hoping maybe that will lift at some point, but I don't know. Hopefully. I want something good to watch,
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, I want something to grab me from right out of the gate and keeps me intrigued from start to finish. So, and it's hard to find.
Yeah.
You can't please everybody, No. I know. I mean, if I was a showrunner for a show, I would hate that job because, especially with the huge franchise like Doctor Who or, Star Trek. I mean, man, the amount of people that you have to please is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Penelope Pitstop says, does Joseph write with particular actors in mind for the characters he is creating?
Usually never. I say usually because there was one instant, and that is on Dark Matter, the character of 5, played by Jodelle Ferland. I always imagined her for the role. In fact, actually kind of a younger version of her, because I worked with her on Stargate Atlantis when she was, I think, 13. She played the part of Princess Harmony, and I'll always remember how, what a phenomenal kind of performance she gave as this bratty princess. And she knew all her lines. She knew all, David Hewlett and Joe Flanagan's lines. She was incredibly professional, for a young girl her age. And so when I created the 5 character, I created it with her in mind. And so, she had to audition, but I very much championed her for the role, and she was fantastic. The other one is, interestingly, in season 3, we introduced the character of Nyx, who appeared in, I think, 3 or 4 episodes. So Aisha, actually, she auditioned for the role of Nyx. Sorry, the character of Solara Shockley. Aisha auditioned for the role of Nyx that Melanie Liebert ended up getting. And Melanie was fantastic and perfect for the role. And although Aisha wasn't right for the Nyx character, I just loved her performance so much. I ended up actually writing a character for her, the Solara Shockley character, who appeared in season 3. And Aisha was amazing. So those are maybe, it's very rare that it happens, but those are 2 instances where I actually wrote with an actor in mind.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Eastland Burkholder says, will we ever get a crowdfunded TV series or movies? And if so, how soon?
I've never sort of been, maybe I just don't really get crowdfunding. I don't think you can get enough money to make a TV series, potentially a movie. But I think with the rapid advancements in technology, I think television production becomes less and less expensive. And it's something I was just discussing online or on Twitter earlier today. The fact that, artists are concerned about the proliferation of AI and being replaced by AI. But what I've been saying all along is creators are creative. And that's something AI really can't be. And AI could assist a creative, but I don't think they will ever fully replace a creative. Whereas what they can replace are the studios and the suits who greenlight productions by making it increasingly less expensive to create stuff. And so I think that we'll reach a point where we're going to cut out the middleman, and that's these fat cat middlemen studios whose sole purpose is to say yes and no and put together the money that will really act as a go-between. They don't really put together the money. Basically, the audiences pay the money to these middlemen who then disperse a small portion of that money to the creators. And that's the way the system is in place now. But there will come a point, I think, where creators will be able to directly connect with audiences the way that influencers do now through TikTok, for instance. I mean, I think there will become a time when creatives, through the use of AI technology, will be able to create their own shows and market them directly to audiences. And suddenly these studios and their CEOs that are paid an exorbitant amount of money to essentially facilitate the process suddenly will find themselves odd men out. And I personally cannot wait for the day when that happens.
Cry.
No, we
I
will
won't
not.
cry.
Yeah.
Because like I said, all we want is something to watch to escape. That's all I have a job, a five day a week job that sucks. I want to come home and look forward to a show that I can escape with.
Yeah.
And that's all that we all want at the end of the day. So, and I think that once that's maybe the middleman is taken out, maybe we'll get more of a diversity as far as
absolutely
as more just the escapism and less political or
absolutely. Let's face it. Right now, the shows that are getting produced are shows that executives want to see, or they're getting produced because they think they'll get a lot of buzz, or basically they get a lot of a lot of critical reception. There has been a shift away from producing shows that the audiences want to watch or the audiences support. So hopefully, the advancements in technology will allow us to get back to programming that audiences can fully connect with.
Yeah, we need that. I need now, like yesterday. I mean, I'm still watching older shows, which nothing wrong with that. But yeah.
I mean, even I've gone retro.
I've gone retro. Yeah. I'm going way back. We go way back.
Well, it's better entertainment. There's, it's just a story, nothing added to it, and it keeps you entertained. That's definitely what I want.
Sure.
Well, I have a question. In any of the TV series and everything, and I've always wanted to know this, when they're drinking alcohol, are they drinking tea or are they drinking real booze?
No, it's always, I mean, food can be like whatever they want. I know, like, for instance, Anthony on Dark Matter was a big fan of rice pudding. So he would get rice pudding, when it comes to food, the actors can choose what they eat. But no, it's usually colored water.
Okay.
Well, I remember this story that there was one famous actor who was shooting, I think, a movie in Vancouver, and he was supposed to drink champagne for a scene. He told the prop master, "I want you to, I want to drink real champagne for the scene." And the prop master was like, "I can't do that. That's not. I mean," and he's like, "No, just give me champagne for the scene." And the prop master was like, "No, I can't do it." And he's like, I'll ask a producer to okay it. And this actor was like, "I want champagne in that scene, and you're going to do what I say." And so the prop master, because he valued his job, went to the producer, and the producer was like, "Sure, that's no problem, do it." And so the actor got champagne for his scene, but he heard that the prop master went behind his back to ask the producers, get the producers okay. And he was like, "You went behind my back. I want to get you back," and basically play this really nasty practical joke that, I'm not going to repeat, sadly, what he did, but apparently, it was pretty bad. So, in general, when you see them drinking, they are not drinking actual alcohol.
Yeah, I'd always wondered, and hey, finally have an answer. So thank you for answering that.
I'm thinking, man, that whatever that whiskey is, sure looks good.
Yeah,
it's just colored brown water.
Yeah.
So for another question from Jason Scott, Joseph, in the art community, some artists have very negative opinion of AI with respect to art. So I'm curious if a similar stigma exists around using AI as an assistant in the writing process.
Certainly, in general, the same stigma does exist. Although I can see why, AI assistant would come in handy. And, if you're, especially in terms of research, if you're looking to research, you're writing a hard sci-fi story and you want, sort of, concise research into pulsars or red dwarves, then they would certainly come in handy. In terms of writing, I don't know, honestly, how helpful they are. I mean, I liken it to, over the course of my career, I've had to rewrite scripts. And to be honest with you, I always find it easier to just start from scratch and write something new than to rewrite something that is average, which is what an AI will give you. In the case of art, it's very different in that I think, it's a real challenge sometimes to be able to discern the difference, to basically be able to say this is AI art, AI generated art versus, a real artist. So, I mean, I think it's different in the art community and something to, obviously you take it seriously in both, in both realms, but very much the art community, I think, has reason to be concerned about it.
Even the AI art you have to edit because again, you might have 3 hands, if you're and it all, you have to be very descriptive. Of what to make good AI art. So it takes a skill. Not quite the same skill as just draw it by hand, but it still takes skill and Photoshop skills.
I find it difficult to use AI art because you have to be so descriptive. I mean, you really have to know your stuff, and it's difficult, but still fun. So I get to work on my parts of speech with it, so it's a plus.
Right. You're welcome, Jason.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's see, horror comics coming out, horror movies.
Yep.
And I know you're an avid reader, and you said you were reading Dorothy Sayers.
Yes.
I finally got the book from the library and have started to listen to it, but have not gotten into it so
Great
much.
mysteries.
Interesting. Yeah.
And yes. Yeah.
I think you would like Leslie R. King's Sherlock Holmes and Mary Russell series. It makes you wonder. That's for sure.
I'll put it on my to-read list. Okay. Thank you for the recommendation.
Jonathan Cox says, "Damn, and I thought Romulan Ale was real."
Who knows? Maybe it is. I don't know. You'd have to ask the actors.
Oh, somebody's asking about Suji. Can we see her? Is she there right now?
Where's Suji?
Oh, your dog is adorable.
Hang on.
That dog is so cute.
She is. She's adorable.
Voila. Hang on. Here she is. This old gal.
Suji.
Oh,
Look at her.
Precious baby.
Yeah.
She was just taking a nap on the couch. 18-year-old, still going strong.
I loved your photos.
Cantankerous. Yeah, they're actually my wife's photos. She is a great photographer, and Suji is a great model.
She is.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Look at that, very malleable. She likes kind of this. Oh, thank you.
Yep, and she's a daddy's girl.
Yes.
She is kind of a daddy's girl. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kelly Lynch says, if you like Dorothy Sayers, you might like Georgette Heyer.
Yes, very much. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Oh yeah, of course. There's always Agatha Christie. I mean,
yes. Actually, I grew up reading Agatha Christie, so yeah, very much loved.
Okay.
Kind of the old,
There's a Doctor Who episode that has like an Agatha Christie
the
vibe.
Unicorn and the the unicorn and the wasp.
The library, or the unicorn and the wasp. Yes. So it was a brilliant episode.
So Jason Scott wants to know what kind of dog is Suji.
Suji is a pug, although she does seem to have kind of maybe some koala genes as well.
Oh,
possibly.
She's a precious baby.
Yes.
She is. Yeah. Oh man.
All right. So
this
Michelle,
it
has been. It's been great. It's been just really awesome meeting you and.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
Geeking out about dark matter and Now I know that Anthony Lemke plays 3, likes rice pudding.
Yeah,
I won't hold that against him, but I always like tapioca.
Crazy,
is my favorite.
Yeah, tapioca over rice pudding, definitely.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on, and
let's do this again sometime.
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
See everybody on the other side.
See you guys. Come find me on Twitter, Baron Destructo.
Bye.
See you. Bye.